News. It's 12 noon.
Right now on FiOS 1 News, extra security at a middle school in Mahwah. Even though the school shooting threat is considered a prank, police and parents are taking it seriously. And a 16-year-old is arrested after the shooting of a 10-year-old boy, but police say someone else pulled the trigger. And 3 years, no clues, and detectives are running out of options. Can you help solve the murder of a Bloomfield man in 2015? The news starts right now.
FiOS 1 News, Daytime Edition.
And good afternoon, I'm Brian Webb. Thank you for watching. We'll get to our top stories in just a moment. First, though, a check of the forecast. Meteorologist Brittany Bohr joins us with more. So, Brittany, will we have a washout this weekend?
Well, Brian, we are back to feeling like winter out there. Temperatures in the low to mid-30s. Some of us seeing 40 degrees like Toms River. Mount Holly, you're close at 39 degrees. Let's get a check of that satellite radar. We've got clouds moving in. Some of us saw some showers earlier on this morning. Those have pushed offshore. We could see some showers as we go into the evening and the overnight hours. Stick with me and I'll time it out for you coming up.
Well, police are at a Bergen County school today, inside and out, after a threat from a student about a school shooting. The student was removed from the school, even though the threat is not considered credible. Still, police and parents aren't taking any chances. In Mahwah, FiOS 1's Arnold Godoy.
Officers will be on campus and inside Ramapo Ridge Middle School today. This after the district says a student made a threat to shoot up the building on February 23rd, which is today. Now, parents were outraged when they first were alerted to the threat last Friday, many wanting to know why it took so long for them to be informed. School officials trying to calm those fears say police have been in contact with the student and their parents. That student was removed from the school for the rest of the year. Because that threat specifically mentioned today, the Board of Education says it's worked with police to secure the campus and take additional security measures. The heightened security comes as gun control and security in schools are in the spotlight across the nation after the killings in Parkland, Florida. Earlier this week, President Trump suggesting that some teachers be allowed to carry guns as an added safety measure. Here in the Garden State, though, the New Jersey Education Association speaking out against those comments, the organization rejecting that idea and instead calling for stricter gun laws. This morning, a Mahwah resident says educators shouldn't have that responsibility.
Honestly, I'm a retired teacher myself, and I wouldn't want to be armed. It's scary in this day and age that we have to worry about such issues happening in our schools, but it's the reality of the world that we live in now.
Back here now by that middle school, that threat being taken very seriously. Officers will be on site and inside the school to keep those students safe. We're in Mahwah. Arnold Godoy, FiOS 1 News.
Well, a Neptune teenager is facing murder charges in connection with the shooting death of a 10-year-old boy. Police arrested the 16-year-old yesterday at Neptune High School. Because of his age, his name is not being released. He is considered an accomplice to the suspect who actually pulled the trigger and who is still on the loose. They were apparently targeting a man inside a home on Ridge Avenue in Asbury Park, but shot and killed the child by accident. The child's mother was shot in the leg and is expected to recover. A deadly shooting is under investigation in Newark today. It happened yesterday morning in the 500 block of South 19th Street. Police tell us 18-year-old Ismail Anthony was shot and later died at the hospital. No arrests have been made and no suspects have been identified. Well, a bombshell report coming from the world of college basketball, and a former Seton Hall standout's name is part of it. Federal documents indicate that Isaiah Whitehead is among more than 25 players who were paid by agents while still in college. That is a blatant violation of NCAA rules. And this is according to a report out today from Yahoo Sports. Whitehead, who currently plays for the Brooklyn Nets, reportedly received thousands of dollars in loans from an agent. So far, there is no response from Whitehead or Seton Hall. There's been a lot of discussion lately about using armed police officers or arming teachers to keep schools safe. It comes as leaders try to find new ways to protect students following the Florida shooting. Even President Trump is backing the idea. But we wanted to find out what parents in New Jersey think about it. Here's FiOS 1's Charles Watson.
After 17 students were shot to death in a mass shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida last week, President Trump has been trying to tackle how to solve the nation's growing gun crisis. Again today, President Trump suggesting some school teachers should carry concealed weapons to protect students from possible threats and possibly rewarding educators for it.
You want to have these shootings because these people are cowards. They're not going to walk into a school if 20% of the teachers have guns.
The president's idea to arm some school teachers were met with opposition from parents we spoke with, including Paul Schoen, who tells me his grandchildren live in Florida and attend the same music program as some of the students who attend the school where last week's mass shooting unfolded.
Teachers have the responsibility for teaching and keeping the children safe, not for acting as policemen or as vigilantes.
Father of two, Vishal Sharma, says he believes a police presence in schools should be more than enough to deter the threat of gun violence.
It needs a certain amount of understanding to actually shoot somebody when you need to. I mean, you give a gun to somebody who hasn't done anything before, and you expect him to shoot somebody who's shooting other people.
President of the New Jersey Education Association, Maria Bliston, rejected the president's idea that schools could be safer if teachers were allowed to carry concealed firearms, saying in part in a statement, quote, "For years, the United States has suffered levels of gun violence unknown almost anywhere else in the world. We must reject the failed ideology of guns as a solution when, in truth, they are the problem," end quote. Now, the schools here in East Brunswick are focused on school safety. Town officials tell us schools here in town will host a visual Sunday evening at 6:30 at the East Brunswick High School football field to honor the victims of the Parkland shooting and all other school shootings. In East Brunswick, Charles Watson, FiOS 1 News.
Well, President Trump is putting himself in the middle of the gun debate. He says the NRA wants to do the right thing for the country. As you can imagine, that statement is already receiving lots of backlash. Tara Palmieri has the latest from the Conservative Political Action Conference going on today in Maryland.
Among a sea of conservative supporters, President Trump held a campaign-style rally at a conservative conference in Maryland. The president joked with the crowd, asking them what they would choose if they had to. Tax cuts or Second Amendment?
Go ahead. Second Amendment, tax cuts. Second Amendment.
Before taking off, President Trump seemed serious about gun reform. He even put pressure on the NRA.
The NRA wants to do the right thing.
The president bounced between topics.
By the way, you don't mind if I go off script a little bit, because, you know, it's sort of boring. It's a little boring.
He even brought up his old political foil, Hillary Clinton. He talked up his record, including tax reform and deregulation, and then blamed Senator John McCain without mentioning his name for the failure to pass health care reform.
And except for one senator who came into a room at 3 o'clock in the morning and went like that, we would have had health care too.
Looking to a tough midterm election ahead, he begged supporters to come out and vote.
Right now, we have a big race coming up at 18. You have to get out. You have to just get that enthusiasm. Keep it going.
While his daughter Ivanka Trump was having dinner with South Korean leaders, he announced new sanctions against North Korea to put pressure on Kim Jong-un for his nuclear and ballistic missile tests.
That was Tara Palmieri reporting. On the topic of guns, the president had this to say.
Well-trained, gun-adept teachers and coaches and people that work in those buildings, people that were in the Marines for 20 years and retired, people in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, people that are adept with weaponry and with guns. They teach. I mean, I don't want to have 100 guards standing with rifles all over the school. You do a concealed carry permit.
And a shocking story coming in the fallout of the Florida shooting. A school resource officer apparently stayed outside of Parkland High School while knowing the shooting was going on the inside. Broward County authorities say the armed deputy patrolling Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High never engaged the shooter. They know it because he was seen on security cameras outside the building the entire time. Instead, Officer Scott Peterson allegedly watched and listened to the shooting and the screams and called in the shooter's position. His boss, the sheriff, says the deputy should have done more.
But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
Peterson resigned after being suspended. And two other deputies are also facing scrutiny for allegedly mishandling several tips about the gunman in the weeks leading up to the shooting. Well, going their own way to stop gun violence. Coming up, New Jersey's governor pledging support for a plan along with 3 other governors from our area. What it all means coming up.